Jack runs a property management company, and not too long ago, he made a decision that most people in this industry would call completely insane. He took his entire team of virtual assistants, the people handling every guest message, every cleaner coordination, every maintenance request, every review follow-up, basically the entire operational backbone of his business, and he fired all of them. Not because the business was failing, not because he was cutting costs out of desperation. He fired them because he had found a better system that actually worked. Specifically, the team at Bestie AI built out roughly 50 custom workflows and a comprehensive AI knowledge base that together replaced every single function his VA team was performing. And the result wasn't chaos. It was the most consistent, scalable, and profitable version of his operation that he's ever had. But here's the thing, the actual cost savings from eliminating those VA salaries, that's only one of the 3 reasons why a move like this matters. And the third reason, the one that almost nobody in this industry is thinking about yet, is arguably the most valuable of all of them. We're gonna get to that. But first, let me show you exactly how Jack set this up, because the specifics are what makes this real and not just another AI is the future talking point. So before the switch, Jack's operation looked like most property management companies. He had a team of virtual assistants handling the day-to-day. And when I say the day-to-day, I mean the relentless, never-ending stream of operational tasks that keep a property management company alive. Guest messaging across multiple platforms, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, direct booking inquiries, coordinating with cleaners, scheduling turnovers, handling last-minute changes when a guest checks out late or a cleaner cancels last minute, creating and following up on maintenance tasks, responding to reviews, sending owner updates, managing check-in instructions and lockbox codes and Wi-Fi passwords and all the tiny details that guests ask about at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. This is standard. This is how the vast majority of property management companies operate right now. And honestly, it works. VAs are capable, they're affordable relative to domestic hires, and they keep the machine running. But here's the friction that every PM company owner quietly deals with. VAs need to be trained, and that training takes real time. Weeks, sometimes months, before a new VA is operating at full capacity. When a VA leaves, and they do leave, the replacement starts from zero. All that institutional knowledge, all those little property specific details, and guest handling preferences that took months to learn disappear. And there's a pattern that almost every operator I've talked to recognizes. VAs tend to learn a lot in the first few months and then plateau. Or worse, they slowly get less careful over time as the work becomes routine. The quality of work doesn't improve. It just kind of holds steady if you're lucky and gradually degrades if you're not. And the biggest issue, the one that really frustrated Jack, was this. 80% or more of his operations team's time was being spent on business as usual, just keeping things running, keeping the lights on, responding to the same types of messages, running the same turnover procedures, handling the same maintenance coordination. If he was lucky, maybe 20% of his team's capacity went towards actually improving the business, implementing guest feedback, optimizing listings, fine-tuning pricing, expanding to new platforms, the stuff that actually moves the needle. Jack was stuck on the hamster wheel, so to speak. The business was running, but it wasn't getting meaningfully better month over month because every ounce of bandwidth was consumed by maintenance. And here's what Jack recognized. It wasn't that his VAs were bad. It was that the work itself, for 80% of cases, followed predictable patterns. It was patterns-based, rules-based, context-dependent, but ultimately learnable work. The kind of work that shouldn't require a human being able to sit there and do manually over and over every single day. So Jack went all in. He worked with the team at Bestie to build approximately 50 custom AI workflows and a comprehensive knowledge base that together would handle the full operational layer of his business. And the 2 specific components that made this possible are worth understanding in detail, because this isn't a plug in AI and hope for the best situation. The reason Jack was able to eliminate his entire VA team is because of how these 2 systems work together and compound over time. Let's start with the workflows. because these are the backbone of everything. When I say Jack built 50 workflows, I'm not talking about simple automations. I'm not talking about guest books a reservation, send a welcome message. That's automation 101. And honestly, most PMS tools can already do that. What I'm talking about are branching conditional workflows that handle real operational complexity, where the AI is making genuine judgment calls rather than just following a rigid if this then that rule that breaks the moment something unexpected happens. The way Bestie's workflow builder works is fundamentally different from most automation tools in this space. You describe what you want to happen in plain English. You tell the system the scenario, the conditions, and the desired outcome. And the AI interprets your intent and builds the branching logic from it. These are what Bestie calls smart triggers. The workflows don't fire from rigid event matching. They respond to context. And Sam, one of the co-founders of Bestie, who actually came from a property management background himself, put it this way. He said, operators would constantly come to them asking, can you do this? Can you do that? And with legacy tools, the answer was always no, because the tool was built for a fixed set of use cases. But with Bestie's workflow builder, the answer is almost always yes, because you're not limited to what the tool was pre-built to do. You're describing what you need and the system builds it. Let me give you some specific examples from the kinds of workflows Jack was running, because this is where it gets real. First, let's look at guest risk detection. Jack has a workflow that works like this. If the AI detects that the risk of a negative review is severe, based on the tone and content of the guest messages and historical review patterns, it automatically generates a task for a guest services response to go out proactively. Think about that. The AI is reading the emotional temperature of a conversation in real time and making a judgment call about whether this guest is heading towards a bad experience. A VA might catch this sometimes. Maybe they notice a frustrated tone in a message and they flag it. But the AI catches it almost every time because it's reading every single message across every platform 24 hours a day, and it never has an off day where it's distracted or rushing through a queue of messages. Another great example is same-day turn upsells. This one is wild. Jack has a workflow that can offer guests early check-in even on same-day turnovers. Now, traditionally, no operator in their right mind would offer early check-ins on a same-day turn. The coordination is just too messy. You don't know exactly when the previous guest left. You don't know if cleaning is actually done. You can't use the price properly because you're not sure of the timing. But Bestie can detect the actual departure time, either through camera integrations or by parsing the guest messages. And it knows the cleaning status because the cleaner checks out through the app and the listing readiness status updates automatically. So the system knows the property is ready and it can proactively offer the incoming guest an early check-in and charge for it. That is revenue that is literally just did not exist before. No human team was capturing it because the operational coordination was too complex to do reliably. And just to drive home how flexible these workflows truly are, let's look at a third example. Proactive amenity management. Let's say you offer pool heating to your guests. Jack has a workflow where 2 days before a guest arrival, the system reaches out and offers a pool heating as a paid add-on. If the guest accepts, the system creates a custom online order form for the exact amount, collects payment, and then the AI will log in and set the pool heating to the right temperature starting the day before check-in, and then go in the morning of departure and switch it off. No human read the calendar, remembered to send the offer, collected the payment, or created the task, or did the actual pool heating. One workflow handles the entire chain. And just to drive home how capable these workflows are, the app that Jack uses for pool heating is an archaic app from 20 years ago. It's not a smart pool heater, and there's no high-tech gadget that Jack had to add to each of his properties to make this work. Bestie leverages cutting-edge AI to actually log in to the pool heating app the same way a human user would and make these changes. That's the key unlock that makes Bestie's workflows so insanely powerful. The best way to think about it is if a human being can do it on a computer or a smartphone, then a workflow can do it too. Now, Bestie's team didn't build all 50 of these on day one. He started with the most common scenarios, the 20% of situations that covered 80% of his VA team's workload: guest messaging responses, turnover coordination, standard check-in and check-out procedures. And then over time, every new edge case that came up became a new workflow. A guest locks themselves out at 2 a.m. That scenario now has a lockout resolution workflow. A cleaner cancels last minute on a same-day turn. Well, there's a workflow for that. The guest complains about noise from a neighboring property. Workflow. After a few months, Jack's system had coverage for virtually every operational scenario his team had ever encountered. And it was handling new scenarios that his VA team had never handled well, like proactive upselling and review risk detection. And here's the thing that make these 50 workflows truly powerful. Individually, each one replaces one small task a VA would handle, but 50 of them working together, running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never forgetting a step, never getting tired, never getting sloppy on a Saturday night when they'd rather not be working. That collective coverage is what replaced an entire team. Not any single workflow, but the system as a whole. But the workflows are only half of what made Jack's setup work. The other half is the AI knowledge base. And honestly, this might be the more important piece long term. Think about what happens when you hire a new team member. The first few months are intense. You're constantly answering questions, correcting mistakes, filling in gaps that they didn't know existed. Where's the lockbox for this property? What's the Wi-Fi password at that one? Do we allow pets here? What's the cancellation policy for direct bookings versus for Airbnb? Can guests use the hot tub after 10 p.m.? 100 questions a week, sometimes even more. But a good employee absorbs all of that, and by year 2, year 3, there's dramatically less that's new to them. They've seen almost everything by then. Now imagine an employee that retains 100% of their training. Not 90%, not 80%, with some degradation over time. 100%. Permanently. Never forgets a single thing you taught them. Never has a bad day where they misremember the procedure. Never quits and takes all that institutional knowledge with them out the door. That's what the AI knowledge base is. When Jack first onboarded with Bestie, the team built his initial knowledge base from his existing materials, his guidebooks, his standard operating procedures, his listing details, his FAQ documents, his property-specific quirks, and local area information. Everything they could pull in to give the AI a strong starting foundation of knowledge about Jack's business. But here's where it gets really powerful. Every time a guest asked a question the AI couldn't answer confidently, it flagged it. Jack or someone on his team would provide the answer once, and that answer was added to the knowledge base permanently. The next time any guest at any property asked a similar question, the AI already knew the answer. In the first few weeks, this happened frequently. Lots of gaps to fill, lots of property-specific details and local knowledge that needed to be encoded. All the little things that guests ask about that live in someone's head and nowhere else. But the curve flattened dramatically. By month 2, the new questions were getting rare. By month 3, they were almost entirely edge cases. The knowledge base had absorbed the vast majority of what guests ask and what operations require, and the effort to maintain it decreased exponentially. Month 1 required significant input. Months 3 through 6, much less. Now, it's almost entirely self-sustaining, with occasional additions for truly new scenarios, like when Jack adds a new property to his portfolio or starts offering a new service. The sooner you start building something like this, the better. Every week you wait is a week of learning that your AI isn't accumulating. Jack has months of compounded knowledge in his system right now. An operator starting today is months behind on that curve. And that curve matters because the knowledge base becomes arguably the most valuable operational asset in the entire business. It's the institutional knowledge that normally lives in people's heads and walks out the door when they quit. Now, the obvious question here is, what about when the AI gets it wrong? And this is actually really important because it's where Bestie's approach differs from a lot of AI tools in this space. A lot of AI guest messaging tools brag about automating 90% of messages. Bestie's philosophy is different. They would rather correctly handle 60% of messages and escalate the rest than answer 90% with a meaningful error rate that leads to hallucinated responses. What does that mean in practice? If the answer to a guest question isn't in the knowledge base, the AI doesn't try to improvise an answer. It doesn't make something up. It either asks Jack's team for clarification or tells the guest it's checking and will get back to them later. That matters because one hallucinated response, one false refund promise, one someone is on their way to help you when nobody actually is, that can cost you a review, a guest relationship, or worse. As the knowledge base grows, the percentage of messages the AI handles confidently goes up over time. But it goes up because the knowledge is expanding, not because the AI is being told to guess more aggressively. That's a critical distinction, and it's a big part of why Jack trusts the system to run his entire operation. Now, if you're watching this and thinking about what 50 workflows would look like for your business, or what it would mean to start building a knowledge base that retains everything your team has ever learned, there's a link in the description to book a quick call with the team at Bestie. And what's worth knowing is that they actually build all of this for you. The workflows, the knowledge base, the entire operational setup. You're not staring at a blank screen trying to figure it out yourself. They build it with you. But before you do anything, you need to understand the full picture of what a system like this is actually worth to your business. Because what I just showed you, the workflows and the knowledge base, that's the how. But the why is where most operators get it wrong. They evaluate a tool like this based on only one dimension, and they're missing the other two dimensions that are arguably much more valuable. Let me show you what I mean. Most people, when they think about using AI in their short-term rental business, they think about it in terms of one thing: cost replacement. How much am I paying for my VAs, and can AI do it cheaper? That's a valid question, and it's real money, but it's only one of 3 buckets you need to look at, and honestly, it's the smallest one. Bucket 1 is cost consolidation and elimination. This is the obvious bucket. What existing costs does a comprehensive AI system replace? For Jack, this meant eliminating his VA team's payroll entirely, but it also meant consolidating software. His guidebook software, the AI knowledge base, has a guest portal and replaced it. His cleaning and turnover operation software, the Ops platform, handles scheduling, assignment, tracking, and owner statements now. His guest messaging platform, Consolidate. His upselling tools, Consolidate. Instead of paying for 5 or 6 separate subscriptions that often don't really even talk to each other well, it's one unified system. For smaller operators, maybe 1 to 5 listings, this bucket might be modest. Maybe you're saving a few $100s a month. But for property management companies running 20, 50, 100 plus properties with full VA teams and multiple software subscriptions, this bucket alone can be tens of thousands of dollars per year in direct attributable savings. It's real, it matters, but it's the bucket most people stop at, and it's actually the smallest piece of the total value. Bucket 2 is new revenue generation. And this is one that surprises people, because a system like this doesn't just do what your team was already doing, only cheaper. It does things your team wasn't doing at all, and it generates new revenue from those activities. Take damage waivers. Jack set up automated damage waivers through the system, where every guest gets offered a waiver as part of their booking flow. The setup was minimal. One other Bestie customer reported setting up damage waivers in Upsells in about 30 minutes. That same customer generated over $241,000 in pure waiver profit over approximately 9 months. And because damage waivers are wholly run and managed by the PM company, they keep all of that revenue for themselves, not just 20%. When's the last time you hired a VA who added $250,000 to your bottom line in 9 months? Or take gap night automation. The system identifies gaps between bookings and proactively works to fill them, either by adjusting pricing or reaching out to potential guests. On average, Bestie's gap night automation generates about 1.2 extra book nights per month per listing. If you have 20 listings, that's roughly 24 extra nights a month that simply weren't filling up before. Or the same day turn upsells we talked about earlier. Early check-ins and late checkouts that were operationally impossible with a human team because the coordination was just too complex. Now, those generate revenue automatically every single day. Here's the key point about this bucket. Jack's VAs weren't doing most of this stuff. Not because they were bad at their jobs, because they were too busy with bucket 1 work, just keeping things running to ever get to the revenue generating activities. They didn't have the bandwidth to offer every single guest a damage waiver. They didn't have the bandwidth to proactively fill gap nights. They definitely didn't have the bandwidth to coordinate same-day turn upsells. The AI handles the day-to-day operational workload and generates new revenue simultaneously. A human team often has to choose one or the other, and they almost always choose keeping the lights on. But the third bucket is the one I really want to talk about, because this is the one that almost nobody is thinking about when they evaluate AI tools. And I'd argue it has more long-term value than the first 2 buckets combined. The third bucket is the competitive advantage. And to understand why this matters so much, you need to really think about what happens over time. With a human team, here's the trajectory. You hire someone, you invest heavily in training them, and for the first few months, they're absorbing information fast and getting better very quickly. But then what? They plateau. Sometimes they slowly get less careful as the work becomes routine. And when they leave, which they eventually will, all that institutional knowledge walks out the door with them. You hire a replacement and the cycle starts over from zero. The quality ceiling of your operation is fundamentally capped by the retention, motivation, and consistency of your human team. And that ceiling doesn't rise over time. It just kind of holds steady at best. Now compare that to an AI system. It starts from zero, just like a new hire. It requires significant investment upfront to build the workflows and the knowledge base, just like training a new employee. But then the trajectory diverges completely. The AI system only gets better. The knowledge base grows every single week. New workflows get added for edge cases. The software company behind the tool is constantly shipping improvements and new features. Your operational layer improves continuously, permanently, with compounding returns. There is no plateau. There is no degradation. There is no turnover risk. The capability curve only goes up. For Jack, this means his operation today is measurably better than it was 6 months ago. And 6 months from now, it'll be even better than it is today. That trajectory never flattens. Meanwhile, his competitors who are running traditional VA teams are dealing with the same training cycles, the same turnover, the same knowledge loss, the same operational inconsistency that they've always dealt with. And then there's scalability. With a human team, every time Jack added properties, he hit operational bottlenecks. More properties meant more messages, more turnovers, more maintenance, more owner communication, which meant more hiring, more training, more management overhead. Growth created friction. Every expansion phase carried risk and cost. With an AI operational layer, every new property Jack brings on doesn't create a proportional strain on the system. The workflows already exist. The knowledge base already covers the vast majority of scenarios. The cleaning ops already have the assignment logic built. He's adding a property to a system, not adding workload to a person. The marginal cost and effort of the next property is dramatically lower. That's what infinite scalability actually looks like in practice. But here's what I think is the most powerful part of this whole equation. And it goes back to something I mentioned earlier about Jack's frustration before the switch. Remember the 80-20 problem? 80% of his team's time was spent on just keeping things running, 20% on actually improving the business. Well, Jack flipped that ratio now. With the AI handling the day-to-day, 20% or less of his time now goes to operational oversight. 80% goes to working on the business, analyzing guest reviews and actually implementing their feedback within days instead of months, optimizing his listings based on what guests consistently mention as reasons they booked, fine-tuning his pricing strategy, expanding to new distribution channels, improving properties based on real data rather than gut feel. That is the competitive advantage, not the cost savings from bucket 1, not even the new revenue from bucket 2, although those are both great. It's the fact that Jack now has the time and capacity to do the things he always knew he should be doing, but never had the bandwidth for. He's playing a different game than his competitors. They're spending 80% of their energy just keeping the machine running. He's spending 80% of his energy making the machine better. And here's the urgency piece. Right now, making a move like Jack's is still an innovative decision. Most operators are still running traditional teams with traditional tools, but the compounding nature of this advantage means the window matters. An AI knowledge base that's been learning for 18 months will outperform one that was set up yesterday every single time. The operators building these systems now are accumulating compounded institutional knowledge, smoother workflows, better guest experience, and higher revenue per listing with every passing month. The gap between them and the operators who haven't started yet is widening, and it's only going to keep widening. That's not fear-mongering, that's math. And the operators who follow in Jack's footsteps over the next 12 to 18 months are going to be the ones dominating their markets. The ones who wait are going to find themselves chasing a moving target. Now, the good news is that the barrier to getting started is lower than most people think. One operator with 200 units had their entire setup rebuilt, redesigned, and was live within a few weeks. And that's because Bestie builds the whole thing for you. You're not figuring it out on your own. Your job is to have conversations and share your documents. Their job is to build your operational layer. So let me bring this back to where we started. Jack made a decision that most operators would consider risky. He fired his entire VA team and trusted an AI system to run his operations. But when you actually break it down, what happened, it wasn't risky at all. It was the most strategically sound move he could have made. His operation runs with less overhead, more consistency, and dramatically more capacity to actually grow and improve the business rather than just maintain it. And the most important takeaway from his story isn't the 50 workflows. It's not even the cost savings or the new revenue, although those are significant. The most important takeaway is this: the knowledge base is the asset. Every single day it's running, it's getting smarter. Every guest interaction is training data. Every edge case that gets resolved is one less thing that will ever need human intervention again. The effort goes down over time while the capability goes up. And that curve starts the day that you begin building it. The operators who start building now are going to have a compounding advantage that gets wider every month. The ones who wait are going to spend the next couple of years trying to catch up to competitors who have a massive head start on institutional AI knowledge. And the principles are the same whether you have 2 listings, 200, or 2,000. If you want to get started now, before your competition does, click the link in the description to book a call with the team at Bestie. They'll walk you through exactly what this setup would look like for your operation, and they'll build the whole thing for you. Drop a comment below and let me know, what's the single most time-consuming operational task in your business right now? I read every comment and I'm genuinely curious. And if you found this valuable, make sure you subscribe. I'm doing deep dives like this every week on how AI is reshaping the short-term rental industry.